Welcome to a groundbreaking moment in space exploration. It's February 12th, 2026, and just 4 hours ago, the James Webb Space Telescope sent a data packet that is challenging everything we thought we knew about the cosmos. At precisely 8:14 UTC today, an unexpected event unfolded involving an interstellar object known as 3I Atlas. What we are seeing right now is something that defies not only our expectations, but the very laws of physics. This object, which had been drifting through space, has just shown signs of emitting light, and not just any light. This isn't a reflection from the sun, as we would expect. In fact, 3I Atlas is currently 240 million kilometers away from Earth in a region of space where sunlight is weak, and yet it's glowing from within. Picture that, an object that was thought to be a cold, inert rock suddenly turning into a light source. Comets, which are essentially dirty snowballs of ice and rock, don't behave like this. They are supposed to be dark, reflecting only a small amount of sunlight, but this is something entirely different. The data from Webb's NIRCam instrument shows that 3I Atlas is emitting coherent photons in the visible spectrum, and here's the kicker, this is happening beneath the surface. When you think about the basic physics of comets, this shouldn't be possible. Comets don't have internal power sources, they don't have nuclear cores, they don't glow from within, but somehow 3I Atlas is. It's not a glitch, it's not a sensor error, this is a sustained internal light emission that astrophysicists, especially at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, are struggling to comprehend. This discovery is setting off alarms worldwide, and it raises far more questions than answers. This is where we must pause and reflect on the larger implications. The physical law of entropy tells us that if you take a rock and freeze it to absolute zero, it would remain dark forever. There's no reason for it to light up. But here we are, witnessing something impossible. In the last 6 hours alone, the intensity of 3I Atlas's internal light has increased by a staggering 400%. This isn't some short-lived flash. It's sustained, it's growing stronger, and it's entirely unexplained. And the implications of this are not just astronomical. They are scientific and technological. If this phenomenon is real, it changes everything we know about space bodies and energy generation. For now, it's not about the light itself. It's about what's inside 3I Atlas, what it means, and what's really going on beneath its surface. The possibilities are endless. At first glance, 3I Atlas seemed to be just another interstellar object, much like Oumuamua before it. This object, catalogued by the Pan-STARRS telescope, was originally thought to be a cold, passive remnant from another star system. Its trajectory indicated it was passing through our solar system, and the assumption was simple, it was just a rock. But today, that assumption has been completely overturned. The moment the light from 3I Atlas was detected, everything changed. It wasn't a faint, irregular signal. It wasn't statistical noise that we often deal with in astronomy. No, this was something clear, something deliberate, a spotlight. The data from the James Webb Space Telescope, using its NIRCam instrument, first picked up the photon surge, but it was flagged as a calibration error. At first, scientists thought the telescope had accidentally locked onto a background star, but when they checked the tracking data, everything was perfect. The light was coming from 3I Atlas, and it was moving with the object, confirming that something extraordinary was happening. Then, 30 minutes later, the European Space Agency's Gaia spacecraft was brought in to verify the coordinates. Gaia's job is to map stars with extreme precision, and it confirmed that the brightness of 3I Atlas had increased by a factor of 5. But The most compelling evidence came from the Atacama Desert in Chile. There, the ALMA array, consisting of 66 radio antennas, was trained on the object. They weren't looking for light, they were focused on detecting heat. But when they received the data, they found something that left everyone scratching their heads. There was no corresponding thermal spike. This was a glowing object that wasn't heating up. It didn't make sense. In our universe, light typically comes from heat, and if 3I Atlas was glowing because of friction or a collision, it would have emitted a massive burst of thermal radiation. Yet, it remained cold, with a surface temperature hovering around minus 40 degrees Celsius. So, how could it be emitting such brilliant, coherent light? This is what scientists are calling cold light, or luminescence. It's a phenomenon seen on Earth in things like fireflies or certain chemical reactions, but in space, on a comet, this is completely unprecedented. The mystery deepens as the data stream continues to pour in. As if one anomaly wasn't enough, the next one appears, the spectrum of the light. This is where things get even stranger. Imagine holding a prism up to a beam of light. What you see is a rainbow, right? This rainbow tells you exactly what elements are producing the light. If it's sodium, it shows up as yellow. If it's hydrogen, you get red and blue lines. But when the spectroscopic analysis from Webb came in at 10:30 UTC this morning, it was nothing like anyone expected. The light pouring out of 3I Atlas wasn't a messy mix of colors, like you'd get from an explosion or fire. Instead, it was concentrated almost entirely in the 450 nanometer range, which corresponds to a deep, piercing blue light. Now, why is this important? Nature doesn't typically produce monochromatic blue light on this scale without a very specific reason. In fact, to get something to glow this specific shade of blue naturally, you'd need temperatures far exceeding 10,000 degrees Celsius, much hotter than the surface of our Sunday. But remember, the data confirmed that 3I Atlas is frozen. So how do we explain this? It's a paradox, a frozen object emitting high-energy blue light that should require the heat of a star to produce. Something doesn't add up, and we're left with a huge scientific puzzle. As the data continued to flood in, another anomaly emerged. The glow from 3I Atlas, which had been steady, suddenly began to fluctuate. At 11:45 UTC, the steady, intense glow started to oscillate. The light intensity dropped by 20%, then surged back up, and then dropped again. But here's where it gets interesting. The pattern of this fluctuation wasn't random. It followed an exact, predictable cycle, 23.4 seconds. The light would pulse, dip, and then surge again, precisely every 23.4 seconds. Nature is chaotic. Natural events don't behave like clockwork. A rotating asteroid might flicker, but the timing would drift. It wouldn't be this regular, this precise. But this pulse from 3I Atlas, it's metronomic. The variance between pulses is less than a millisecond. When you consider the cold light, the monochromatic blue spectrum, and this perfectly timed oscillation, it quickly becomes clear natural explanations are running out. As a theoretical physicist, I've studied some of the most bizarre phenomena in the universe, from black holes to the multiverse. But this is different. It breaks the fundamental rules of cometary behavior. Comets don't behave like this. They don't generate synchronized electromagnetic pulses. They don't exhibit cold light, and they certainly don't pulse in a precise, orderly manner. So why is 3I Atlas doing this? The major space agencies have been cautious in their statements, carefully avoiding the word comet. Instead, they're referring to it as Object 3I. Why the shift in language? Because the behavior of 3I Atlas doesn't match what we know about comets. They are made of ice and dust, and ice and dust don't produce synchronized pulses in the blue spectrum. This is not a comet. But then, what is it? Scientists are scrambling to come up with a model that explains these bizarre phenomena. They're considering everything from exotic chemical reactions to crystalline structures that might interact with solar wind. But no matter what they look at, they keep running into the same issue. Nothing fits. This is an object that is behaving in ways that defy all known physics. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get any stranger, another piece of the puzzle emerged. At 14 UTC today, the emission from 3I Atlas underwent a dramatic change. The light, which had been omnidirectional, shining in all directions, suddenly focused. The sensors on ESA's Gaia spacecraft detected a drop in brightness, which led scientists to believe that the light had stopped. But that wasn't the case. The data from Webb, which is positioned at a different angle, showed that the brightness actually doubled. The light didn't stop, it focused. 3I Atlas stopped acting like a lamp and started acting like a lighthouse. The beam was now directed, not diffused. This is where things take an even more unsettling turn. The beam from 3I Atlas is not sweeping randomly across space. It is locked, focused on a single point. It's as if this object is intentionally aiming its light. This is not natural. In nature, when gas vents or explosions occur, the energy disperses in all directions. But this beam is focused, and that suggests something entirely different. This isn't just a comet. This isn't just a rock floating through space. This is something with structure, something with purpose. As the beam from 3I Atlas adjusted, maintaining its fixed trajectory, the implications of this discovery began to settle in. It wasn't just emitting light, it was actively pointing. This level of precision is beyond what we typically associate with natural phenomena. The beam wasn't simply glowing randomly. It was tracking, it was adjusting, compensating for the rotation of the object itself. At 1530 UTC, as 3I Atlas rotated, the beam adapted to keep its focus locked on a specific point in the sky. This is what's called active pointing, and it requires a feedback mechanism, something to detect its position and adjust its direction accordingly. A rock, a gas cloud, a comet, they can't do that. The ability to adjust in real time suggests that 3I Atlas is not a passive object, but something much more complex. As if this wasn't strange enough, scientists at the Green Bank Telescope in West Virginia, the world's largest fully steerable radio telescope, focused specifically on the modulation of the blue light. They wanted to understand if the flickering of the light was truly random or if it followed a particular pattern. What they found sent shockwaves through the scientific community. The oscillation wasn't just a simple on-off flicker. Instead, the light pulses were made up of smaller, distinct variations in intensity. Within each pulse, there were microfluctuations, rapid bursts of energy that weren't random. These fluctuations exhibited an ordered structure, a repeating sequence of intensity spikes. This behavior mimics a coded message, something far beyond the randomness we would expect from a natural process. The data pointed to something far more sophisticated than a rotating rock or a gas venting into space. This is where the data started to look like it was encoding information. Think about it. In nature, we see regular patterns. Pulsars, for example, emit regular radio pulses. But what's happening here is different. The sequence of bursts and pauses from 3I Atlas isn't just a simple rhythm, it appears to carry meaning. It's as if the object is trying to communicate. The complexity of the pattern goes far beyond what we would expect from a natural source. Nature doesn't create messages with such precision and structure. It's this finding that makes it impossible to dismiss the possibility that we are dealing with something artificial, something deliberately designed. As scientists and engineers race to find an explanation for these findings, the reality of the situation is beginning to sink in. 3. Atlas is not just an oddity in space, it's a potential game changer. It's pushing the boundaries of everything we know about the cosmos. We're witnessing something that could redefine physics and our understanding of the universe. But the most disturbing part? The signal is directed at us. The beam, which has been sweeping through the solar system, has locked onto Earth. This isn't some random cosmic event. This is targeted, and it's happening right now. By 1645 UTC, something profound happened. The Hubble Space Telescope captured the target of 3I Atlas's beam. This data point would shift the conversation from an anomaly to a potential crisis. Up until that moment, it was unclear where the beam was aimed. But now we know the beam is not pointing at a distant star. It's not pointing at the center of the galaxy. It's not directed at any random void in space. No, it's locked onto Earth. More specifically, it is fixed on our planet's orbital path. As Earth moves around the Sun, the beam from 3I Atlas adjusts to stay focused on us. The beam compensates for our movement, tracking our position as we orbit. This is no coincidence. A comet or a rock cannot do this. The beam's ability to adjust and track Earth's movement implies a sophisticated, engineered system. It's not some random occurrence. The beam is locked onto us with precision that requires active, deliberate control. And what's worse is the fact that this beam is increasing in intensity. The closer it gets to Earth, the more its signal strengthens. We are no longer talking about a natural event. What we are witnessing is an active targeting system, the kind of system you would expect to see from advanced technology, not from a comet. This behavior is beyond the capabilities of any known natural object. Now, as we move forward, there's one more disturbing revelation to consider: the chemical composition of the light. In the past, when scientists have studied comets, they found simple elements like carbon, water, ammonia, and methane. These are the building blocks of comets, but the spectrometer on the Very Large Telescope, VLT, in Chile detected something entirely different in the light from 3I Atlas. It found technetium. This is a rare and synthetic element that doesn't exist naturally on Earth. It has no stable isotopes and decays quickly. The presence of technetium is incredibly significant because it's a clear indicator of nuclear activity. On Earth, technetium is produced in nuclear reactors. It doesn't occur naturally in cold comets. So, the fact that it's being emitted from 3I Atlas raises the terrifying possibility that we are dealing with an object that is actively generating energy through some form of nuclear reaction. The discovery of technetium confirms that 3I Atlas is not a passive rock, it's a sophisticated, engineered object, and it is sending us a signal, a message, and potentially a warning. The questions are now stacking up, and the implications are growing darker by the minute. The signal from 3I Atlas is not just a strange cosmic event. It's a deliberate, targeted message, one that we may not fully understand yet, but that could change everything. By 1730 UTC today, NASA initiated a blackout protocol for the Deep Space Network, meaning the data from 3I Atlas was encrypted. This step was taken to secure the stream of information as it continued to pour in. But by this time, much of the data had already been shared. The evidence is clear. 3I Atlas is not behaving like any known comet. It is a highly engineered object, and it is sending a beam of focused energy directly at Earth. The implications of this are staggering. Is this a signal of first contact, or is it a targeting system an artificial intelligence pointing at us for a much darker reason. As the telescopes continue to monitor the object, the data keeps coming in. Every hour brings new information, and every hour the intensity of the signal grows. In exactly 14 hours, 3I Atlas will reach its perihelion, the closest point to the Sun, and we will see how it responds to the solar wind. If it behaves like a typical comet, it will outgas and disintegrate. But if it survives, if it continues to send that beam and maintains its structure, we will know for sure that 3I Atlas is not made of ice. It will be made of something else, something far more advanced. As of now, we are left with one burning question. What is 3I Atlas? Is it a comet from another star system, or is it something far more sophisticated, a probe, a signal, or perhaps even a weapon? The data from today has shattered our understanding of the cosmos, and we are on the verge of discovering something that could change the course of human history. Keep watching as the mystery of 3I Atlas continues to unfold. The answers are out there, and we are about to find them. Stay tuned, and don't forget to subscribe to keep up with the latest developments.